If you want to learn how to talk about food in English, this English lesson is for you. C, M, W, and R. For the next hour, you are going to learn about foods that start with those letters. And the next letter we do on this channel will be C. So feel free to leave your favorite seafoods in the comments below. I already have Mega's favorite seafood and Dennis's. Dennis has a very expensive seafood that he has told me about. Please don't forget to like this video if it helps you find English, and if you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to subscribe. Now let's get to the English. Oh boy, it's a few days later and things have changed. A lot of people like it when I teach in a snowstorm. In today's English lesson, you are going to learn how to talk about food in English. As we talk about food in English, I will also be including some of your favorite foods because I asked on social media, what are your favorite foods? But they had to start with the letter G. Why the letter G? I don't know, it just sounded like a good idea at the time. And I have an 8-hour road trip ahead of me today. So I thought, why not teach an English lesson while I have this really long road trip? I won't be bored and you will learn English at the same time. If you want to improve your English, there is a good chance at some point you are going to have to talk about food. I've been driving for a little bit, so good place to stop, maybe use the bathroom, get a little more gas. But the first food I would like to teach you that begins with G is one you probably know, and that is grapes. Looks like a lot of trucks over there are taking a break too. But if you want a definition for the word grapes, think of it like this. Small, circular fruits that can be red, purple, maybe green, and they're usually very juicy. That's a term I would like to teach you. Juicy. It's an adjective. It describes things. You know, like orange juice or apple juice, it's liquidy. There's liquid for that juice. And if you hear a fruit described as juicy, it means it probably has a lot of water inside, much like grapes do. Think about a banana. Think about the fruit there. It's not really juicy. I wouldn't call a banana juicy, but grapes, yeah, they're juicy. And do you know who likes juicy grapes? Right up there, Luke from Poland. He's been with the channel for a long time. He said he likes grapes. The next food that starts with G that I would like to teach you is something we call guava. And I have a definition right here on my phone about what a guava is. It's a tropical fruit with a green skin and a pink or white flesh. Is tropical a new word for you? Anytime you hear tropical, think a warm and sunny place. So guavas are grown in tropical places. That definition also said that guavas have a green skin. You might also hear peel, and that is the outside of a fruit. I also mentioned the flesh of the guava. Anytime you hear flesh, think of the inside, the juicy part of the fruit. And that word flesh, like sometimes you can call your skin flesh, but also you might hear it as the inside part of the fruit that you eat. You know who likes guavas? Lulu or Lou? I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but she said she likes guava. Well, at least it's her second favorite food that starts with G. They're having a sale on windshield washer fluid. It's not a food that starts with G, but it can really help you see when you need to drive. Let's get back in the car and get some more driving done. You know what I forgot to mention when I was talking about guava? Is that my wife Jamie is allergic to guava. If she ever eats guava by mistake, her lips will get really puffy. They will start swelling. And yet another pit stop They have a Burger King here. You can get gas here, but you don't care about that, right? You want more foods in English that start with G. So our next one is going to be something we call grapefruit. I have a definition for you of what a grapefruit is in English, and it's a large citrus fruit with a sour to semi-sweet taste. It's not exactly easy, right? I just said citrus. It's a good adjective to describe food, and if you use citrus to describe food, it means like it has a lot of acid in it. A couple fruits in English that can be called citrus would be, of course, grapefruit, orange, tangerine. Lots of acid in citrusy fruits, or citrus fruits. I also said sour and semi-sweet. Describing the way food tastes in English is really tough. It's difficult in any language, but this summer, Bob the Canadian and we did a whole English lesson on describing foods in English. You may want to check that out. We do talk about sour, and think about a lemon. If you ever bit into a lemon, your face would pucker or go like that because it's so sour. Sweet, think of sugar, but I said semi-sweet. Anytime you hear semi in English, think like almost or like a little bit. How about this sentence for grapefruit? She squeezed fresh grapefruit juice for a refreshing morning drink. Refreshing. That means it makes you feel better. Some people take a shower to feel refreshed. Or I'm sure on a hot day, some grapefruit juice might be refreshing. Might make you feel a little better. I personally don't really like grapefruit. It's a little too sour and sweet for me. The next food that starts with G that I would like to teach you is ginger. Now, this is a spice. A lot of people use it in cooking, but my favorite way to see ginger used in cooking is with gingerbread cookies. Very good. Has a little bite to it. You might feel a little tickling on the inside of your cheek if you eat ginger. How about this sentence? The soup was flavored with ginger to give it a hint of spiciness. If you ever hear hint, just like I used it, it means just like a little bit, a hint of ginger. I've stopped again, and it's right by the ocean, I think, or maybe a little piece of the ocean, more like a river, but I'll show you this place. And before I show that to you, I do want to mention one more thing about ginger that we have in the United States, and that is ginger ale. So it's a drink made with probably fake or artificial ginger, but it does have that little bite I was talking about that you might get if you try eating ginger. I am really close to the ocean, but like I said, I don't think this is actually the ocean. Looks more like a marsh, or maybe we would call it an inlet. It's kind of cool though, and I'll use my phone, but it looks like there might be some ducks swimming on the other side of this river thing. There is a little path that leads to the river, but I think if I went down that path, my shoes would get wet. I can't get the dad shoes wet today. I have too much driving to do. But the next food that starts with G that I would like to teach you is a type of cheese. And this cheese is called Gouda cheese. It's kind of famous in the Netherlands. And this cheese is not sharp like cheddar cheese. When I say sharp, I also mean like it has a little bite to it. No, this cheese, Gouda cheese, is very mild. And when I say mild cheese, it means the flavor of the cheese is not extreme. It's kind of in the middle. I don't know about you, but I love some sharp cheddar cheese. How about this next G word? Garlic. Garlic, you might find it comes in bulbs. Bulbs are usually round things. We have things called light bulbs in English, and garlic does come in little bulbs of garlic. All right, this can be a little confusing in English, but garlic comes in bulbs, And the smaller things that come from a bulb we call cloves of garlic. We do also have a spice in English called clove, but you can mince garlic cloves. Do you know that verb mince? It's like to cut or chop, but you do it in really small pieces. A lot of people like to mince garlic when they cook. And you know who said they like garlic? It was Leona. But she said she likes something called garlic bread. And I do too. I think it goes great with spaghetti. Oh yeah, have a nice plate of spaghetti and a side of garlic bread. You're eating well if you do that. And look who decided to join us. The sun. It's just coming out. It's peeking out through the clouds. What do you say? I get back in the car, drive down the road a little ways, and then talk about some more G foods. Oh boy, it's a few days later and things have changed. It's a snowstorm. A lot of people like it when I teach in a snowstorm, so let's finish the rest of this lesson about G foods in a snowstorm. The next G food I would like to talk about, as long as I don't fall on the ice. Hang on, I need to be careful. There is ice underneath the snow and I can't see it. The snow has covered the ice. But the next G food I would like to talk about are green beans. There are a lot of different types of beans in English. You can have kidney beans or navy beans or lima beans, but the only bean that I know that starts with G are green beans. And green beans are, guess what? Green, but they're also like long and skinny. Here is a sentence with green beans in it. I have it right here on my phone. The side dish featured crisp green beans seasoned with herbs. Now seasoned, that might be different for you because right now we are having the season of winter for sure, but that's not what I mean when I'm talking about food. Seasoning your food means you add flavor to it. Maybe you season it with salt, pepper, or maybe even garlic powder. The next G food I would like to talk about are grits. Now grits are really hard to explain, so I will put a picture of what grits look like. But where I live, in the northern part of the United States, we don't eat grits that much. They're almost like a porridge maybe, or an oatmeal. But in the South, where I used to live, like in the state of Alabama, grits are very popular. I love grits, but I don't like grits on their own. That means just by themselves, with no seasoning or no extra ingredients. I like my grits with cheese, salt, lots of butter. So not the healthiest, but they are pretty good. Grits. Have you ever had grits in your life? Let me know in the comment section. How about this sentence with grits? In the American South, grits are a popular breakfast item. Yeah, most people, if they eat grits, they are going to eat them for breakfast. The next G food in English I would like to talk about is granola. Granola, it's usually made with oats. It's definitely a type of grain food. Some people have granola for breakfast. It's usually pretty healthy. And then you can actually have that granola made into a bar, like a rectangular type of food. And the granola is probably held together with sugar. Granola on its own, or by itself, is probably pretty healthy. But just like grits, once you start adding sugar to it and all of the other flavors that make it taste good, it's probably not that healthy anymore. How about this next one? The next food that starts with G I'd like to talk about is yogurt. Oh, wait a second. Yogurt starts with a Y, but Greek yogurt starts with a G. Greek yogurt is supposed to be a little healthier than just plain old regular yogurt. And before we get to the final G food, please, if you haven't yet, subscribe. if you like this English lesson, or hit the like button, or maybe do both. But for the last G food, let's talk about gumbo. It's a type of soup, almost like a stew, which is a really thick soup. And gumbo can be found in the southern part of the United States, a state like Louisiana. Gumbo is often filled with shrimp, maybe tomatoes, and it's often spicy. I hope your English is a little bit better now after watching this video. If you still want more English, check right up there. I did a whole English lesson on how to get better for the IELTS, or maybe the TOEFL. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Sounds like there are some birds fighting. Don't they know I'm trying to film an English lesson? Let me try some French here. That's probably horrible, I'm sorry. In today's English lesson, you are going to learn how to talk about food in English. But all of these foods are special because all of them begin with the letter M. A couple weeks ago, I did the same type of lesson, but in that lesson, we talked about food that started with G. I asked AI, or artificial intelligence, to pick a random letter for me, and they picked M. And then I asked you on social media, what was your favorite food that began with the letter M? The first food that starts with M is actually a type of fruit, and that is a mango. Mahmoud from Mauritania, couple M words there, said he liked mangoes the best. Now be careful, when you say mangoes, it gets an ES at the end. Don't ask me why. But mangoes are a tropical fruit with a soft inside. Tropical. I've talked about this before. When you talk about something tropical, think someplace that is hot. They probably have a lot of palm trees in tropical places. Some countries that produce a lot of mangoes are China, Indonesia, Pakistan, Mexico, but guess which country produces the most mangoes? Yep, it is India. The next food I want to teach you that starts with M in English is mac and cheese. Sometimes you will hear this called macaroni and cheese, and it's a pretty simple dish. You need some pasta and you need some melted cheese. Do you know who likes mac and cheese? That would be Tanya. She lives in Germany. And for the type of pasta you use in mac and cheese, that's up to you. Some of my favorite pastas to use are elbow macaroni, penne pasta, and bow tie pasta. Please, if you are enjoying this English lesson, hit that subscribe button. Maybe throw a like on this video. It really helps the channel grow. Tanya also said she liked chocolate mousse. Now I know what you're thinking. Wait, chocolate? That starts with a C. The way Tanya wrote it was the French way, and it starts with an M that way. Maybe not exactly a food that starts with M in English, but it's so delicious, I'll give it a pass. I will let it go. A chocolate mousse is a creamy dessert made with chocolate, sugar, and whipped cream. We also have an animal in English called a moose. They are famous where I live, but it is spelled in a different way. Whipped is a word I just used. I could do an entire English lesson on the word whipped, but here I used it as an adjective describing cream. To make whipped cream, you have to whip milk, put air in that milk, make it bigger, and then you can top your chocolate mousse with whipped cream. We are now heading into the snowy woods where I am sure there are some maple trees, which is perfect for our next M food. Mode has the next food that starts with M, and he likes maple syrup. Maple syrup is a sweet liquid made from the sap of maple trees. It is often poured over pancakes. Sap might be a new word for you. It comes from maple trees. It's a liquid. It's pretty sticky and it is boiled down to make maple syrup. Do you know that phrasal verb, boiled down? Well, think of boiling water. It's really hot. There are bubbles in it, and that sap is boiled for a long time. A lot of the liquid will evaporate, and what is left is something very sweet, and we call that maple syrup. Filippo is up next with his favorite M food, and his favorite are meatballs. Filippo is from Italy, so I guess it makes sense that he likes meatballs. Those things pair well with spaghetti. And to pair something with something else means two things go really well together, like spaghetti and meatballs. Some people think wine and cheese pair really nicely. Let's talk about what meatballs are. Meatballs are small balls of ground meat, often mixed with spices and sometimes cooked in sauce. Now, I said ground meat. You might use a meat grinder to ground meat. It's when you take a piece of meat and make it really small. Not a fillet. Those are different. In the picture, you will see chicken fillets. The next food is marshmallows, and Etienne Beaumont loves marshmallows. Let's talk about what marshmallows are in English. A marshmallow is a soft, white sweet made from sugar and gelatin. Gelatin. That might be a new word for you. I often forget this, but gelatin is actually made from animal products. If you are a vegetarian, you probably can't have gelatin. We have a famous dessert here in the United States. You might have it in your own country, but it is Jell-O. Jell-O is made with gelatin. It's a solid that's almost like a liquid. When you shake it, it jiggles. Marshmallows are also fluffy. I love to sleep with fluffy pillows at night. You might also hear the adjective puffy to describe marshmallows. The next M food I would like to talk about are mashed potatoes. Libby says she loves mashed potatoes. Hopefully you know what a potato is in English. If not, there's a picture for you. Those potatoes are boiling. They are becoming softer. To make mashed potatoes, you might take out a masher. That's a type of kitchen utensil. And mash is a verb. It means to push down on and make smaller. You want to remove all of the lumps from your mashed potatoes. You want them to be smooth. Take a look at that picture. There are smooth potatoes right there. And on the other side, there are lumpy mashed potatoes. Who knows? Some people actually like lumps in their mashed potatoes. Do you make your bed in the morning? Every morning when you get up, do you make your bed look neater? Most people think when a bed is made, the blankets should be smooth. There should be no lumps in your blankets if you have made your bed. Sounds like there are some birds fighting. Can you hear them? It's a little distracting. Don't they know I'm trying to film an English lesson? I don't know about you, but I always think mashed potatoes taste better with salt and butter, maybe some sour cream. The next M food in English I would like to talk about actually comes from the French. We say macaroons. Let me try some French here. Maybe in French it's more like macaron. That's probably horrible, I'm sorry. But macaroons are small, sweet cookies made with sugar, egg whites, and coconuts or almonds. Let's talk about what an egg white is and what an egg yolk is. Think of an egg. The white part is called an egg white. The yellow part, in English, we say yolk. And Lady Melody says that she likes macaroons. Cita from Brazil says she likes mint chocolate chip ice cream. My favorite food in the world is probably pizza, and my second favorite is probably popcorn. Two words that start with P. Maybe that should be the next letter we use when talking about food. Let me know in the comments. What letter do you want to see next? But I think my third favorite food is ice cream. Yeah, I like all of the unhealthy foods. But mint chocolate chip is not one of my favorites. I find mint to be a very polarizing flavor when it comes to ice cream. Polarizing. I hope I can teach you a new English word. If something is polarizing, it means a lot of people hate it, but also a lot of people love it. There aren't many people in the middle that think, it's okay. I think mint chocolate chip ice cream reminds me a little bit too much of toothpaste. I don't mind chocolate chips in my ice cream, but I do love chocolate ice cream. Who can forget M&Ms? That definitely starts with M. It almost starts with M twice. And Natalia from Chile loves M&Ms. M&Ms are small, round candies with a chocolate center and a colorful, hard shell. They are supposed to melt in your mouth, not in your hands. Now, you can find shells on a beach, but when we talk about a candy shell, that is more like a turtle shell. It is to protect the candy. If you would like bonus English lessons and to participate in the members chats, you can become a channel member. There is a link in the description. It costs a little bit of money each month, but you get a lot of bonus English with your membership. If you're still looking for more English, right up there, I did another English lesson with G Foods. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. In today's English lesson, you are going to learn about my favorite subject, which is food. I hope it is one of your favorite subjects. And we are going to talk all about foods that begin with W. I'm at my school right now. I'm not sure if I will record the whole English lesson here, but I do want to show you this incredible sunrise. I mean, I'm one of the first people to get to my school. I like getting here early, and sometimes the sunrise just makes that worth everything, getting out of bed so early. And guess what? I did not come up with any of these W foods. You did. I asked on social media, what are some of your favorite foods in English that start with W? You came through. I got a bunch of answers. I didn't even know we had this many foods that started with W in English. Let's talk about the first food that starts with W. Thank you, Denise and Mahmoud. You both said watermelon. There are a couple parts of the watermelon that I would like to talk about. So, of course, it is a fruit, and when it is ripe, the outside is green. You don't eat that part. And that part we call the rind in English, R-I-N-D. The part you eat, we could call the meat or the flesh, you know, that pink part. And sometimes you can get what we call seedless watermelon. Now, they do have seeds. They're little white things, but they're not like the black seeds that you really can't eat in a regular watermelon. I don't know about you. Watermelon is not my favorite fruit, but on a hot summer day, I don't think there is anything better to eat than watermelon. Okay, this next food that starts with W might not sound like it's English because it comes from the German. But the next food, I'm a little nervous about pronouncing this, but in English we say Wienerschnitzel. Wienerschnitzel. It is a type of meat, it's a type of beef, but it's special because it comes from young cows. We call those young cows calves. And instead of beef, the meat from young cows is called veal. So you take a piece of veal and then you coat it with breadcrumbs, and then you deep fry it in oil, and then it becomes Wienerschnitzel. Now, it's not German. It actually comes from the country of Austria. And I'm told that Wienerschnitzel actually means Vienna cutlet. A cutlet is a type of meat. It's a cut of meat. And Vienna, just in case you don't know, is the capital of Austria. Thank you, Tanya, for providing that very complicated W word for me to say, but it is super important. I will try it in German. Wienerschnitzel. Please, if you speak German, Tanya, tell me, how bad was that? And depending on your first language, I think that W sound is quite hard to make. I hear some people who are non-native English speakers use the sound as more like a V. So that's why Wienerschnitzel might sound like Wienerschnitzel in the original German. I'm not sure how many languages have that W sound, that wah, wah. Hey, we are outside now. It's a beautiful day, but if you are enjoying this English lesson, would you mind hitting that like button? And if it's your first time here, please subscribe so you never miss another English lesson. Sorry about the banging in the background. My neighbor is doing something, but the next W word I would like to talk about are wings. And thank you, Omran, for mentioning it. Wings are often called chicken wings or buffalo wings. We'll talk about what the buffalo means in just a minute. But you can imagine these wings do come from chickens, and there are usually two parts to them. One is called the flat part, and one is called the drumlet. And the great thing about chicken wings is that you can get them in a lot of different flavors, and you can get them in a lot of different levels of spiciness. You could get mild, which means they're not spicy at all. You could get medium, which is what it sounds like, kind of in the middle. Then you can get hot. I prefer the medium ones, right in the middle. But you might also hear buffalo wings. Now, in English, you might know the animal buffalo. Buffalo wings have nothing to do with that animal. They are still from chickens, these wings, but buffalo means they're spicy. And they originally came from this city in the United States called Buffalo, New York. I actually visited Buffalo, New York this summer. At the end of this lesson, I will leave a link to one of the English lessons I made there. Sabka is next, and she mentions two words that start with W, walnuts and whole wheat bread. Walnuts are exactly what they sound like. They are a type of nut. They grow on a tree. They have a hard outer shell. You might need a nutcracker to open these. And guess what? They taste great in banana walnut bread. Yeah, bananas and walnuts, for some reason, pair really well together. When I hear whole wheat bread, I think a very healthy type of bread. Not like the white bread, which also starts with a W. No, whole grain bread has a little different taste. Maybe not as good of a taste in my opinion, but it is healthier for you. It's supposed to be a little more natural. Maybe a little less sugar. Yeah, in the United States, we put sugar in just about everything, including our bread. I'm sure it's not very healthy. Diego mentioned waffles, and I think waffles are a very versatile food. What does versatile mean? It means you can do a lot of things with it. Waffles can be sweet, or they can be savory, which is the opposite of sweet. You can have them for breakfast, you can have them for lunch, you can even have them for dinner. You probably need a waffle iron to make waffles, and I like my waffles with butter and maple syrup. We talked about maple syrup before when we talked about foods that started with M in English. We just talked about bananas when we talked about walnuts, but I would like to talk about bananas again when we talk about waffles. I love waffles topped with bananas, maybe some Nutella, maybe some peanut butter. But if you want a savory waffle, You could top it with eggs, cheese, maybe some kind of meat. Yeah, waffles are a very versatile food. Up next is Mode, and he mentioned weed. Now, I'm not sure what he meant by that. If he meant just weed, I probably shouldn't talk about it. That kind of stuff is illegal in many parts of the world. It's not illegal where I live, but many parts of the world it is. You will have to look that up for yourself. But he might have had a typo there, and maybe he meant weeds. That doesn't make sense either, because weeds are the things that grow in gardens that you don't want. A lot of people pull weeds to try to save the other things in the garden that they like. I don't know, Mode. I'm very confused. Let's move on to the next W food. Up next is somebody you might know, and if you don't know him, maybe you should know him, but it's Teacher Mike. He's a great English teacher. I'll leave his links in the description if you would like to follow another English teacher. He does good stuff. He mentioned wontons and white fish. Let's talk about white fish first. It's exactly what it sounds like. Fish where the meat is white. So the type of fish that might be considered white fish would be cod, would be haddock. A fish that's not whitefish is something called salmon, because the meat of that fish is pink. Now, wontons come from China. They are a little hard to describe. Luckily, I can put a picture of what wontons look like, but they have this thin, kind of bready outer shell. They're shaped into a square, and inside you can put pretty much anything you want. Chicken, shrimp. I don't know if you eat beef or pork, but those two meats could go in there, and pretty much any vegetable you can think of. You could call wontons another versatile food, and they can also be either boiled or steamed or fried. And Sidra mentioned one of my favorite things. I never would have thought of this, but it's called walking taco casserole. Let's talk about casserole first. In English, that just means a whole bunch of things were dumped into a dish and probably baked. But the walking tacos thing is interesting. This is how my family makes walking tacos. So it's usually Jamie, my wife. She will brown up some meat, and then you make like tacos with the traditional things: lettuce, cheese, sour cream, and then you get a little bag of Doritos. You crush up the Doritos, and then you pour all of the taco stuff inside. So basically you have a taco-like thing that you can eat with a fork or a spoon and walk around with it. It's such a super easy meal if you are going to have people over, maybe to watch a sporting event. Good stuff. Lorena mentioned something that I'd never heard of. They were Wonderberries. So I had to do a little research. Well, if you heard what they are, they're berries. So maybe you know what a berry is. Well, these things grow just like strawberries or raspberries. When they are ripe, they're like dark purple. But when they're unripe, they're green. And guess what? If you eat Wonderberries before they are ripe, they are toxic. Do you know what toxic means? It means it could kill you. So you need to be very careful when you're picking Wonderberries. If they're purple, good to go. If they're green, just keep them there. You don't want to die. And just like other berries, Wonderberries will make their way into pies, jellies, jams. I don't know if I am brave enough to try Wonderberries. I want to thank you. I hope your English is a little bit better now that you've watched this English lesson. If you're looking for more foods, right up there is a playlist with G and M. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.
These next foods that start with R are from English teacher Mike, but he tries to be funny sometimes. He is a great English teacher, but he gave me one R food that is one of my favorite foods of all. One I've never had, and one I don't even know if I should teach. It is so gross.
In today's English lesson, you are going to learn how to talk about foods that begin with R in English. A couple weeks ago, I asked, what are your favorite foods that begin with R in English? And you responded. So throughout the English lesson, I will mention some people who answered that question. Let's begin with the first one. Nobody had this for an answer, but it is a radish. Now, a radish is a small, crunchy vegetable usually eaten raw. So raw means not cooked. It can be red, white, or purple. And it has a peppery taste. You know, like salt and pepper, the pepper part. It's just a little bit spicy. Radishes were first grown in Southeast Asia. Countries like Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam. You probably have different names for those countries in your own language. So they've been grown in that part of the world for thousands of years, but they're now popular in pretty much all parts of the world. Please let me know in the comments, do you like radishes? I don't mind radishes, I just can't remember the last time I've eaten one. A lot of people will like to slice up radishes and put them in their salad to give their salad a little crunch. I often forget to do this, but if you are liking this video, do you mind hitting that like button? And if it's your first time here, please go ahead and subscribe. The second food I would like to talk about is a raisin. It is basically just a dried grape. It's sweet and chewy, and it comes in two different colors, purple and green. Raisins have also been around for thousands of years. The ancient Greeks and Romans liked eating raisins. They also used them for medicinal purposes. That's another way to say they used them like medicine. Raisins would often be used as decorations. If the ancient Greeks wanted to please one of their gods, they might have a very colorful plate of raisins for them. You can eat raisins as a snack. You can put them into baked goods. The next food I would like to talk about are raspberries. And if you notice how they are spelt, for some reason there is a P in the middle of raspberry, but trust me, we do not pronounce that P. Raspberries are usually red, but sometimes they come in black, maybe purple, maybe golden. I would describe them as sweet because they do have a lot of sugar, but they're also a little tart. Tart is almost like the opposite of sweet. In fact, if you taste something tart, your face might pucker like this. Lemons are sour, that's pretty extreme. Tart is in between sour and sweet. Raspberries can be eaten fresh or they can be frozen so they will last a little longer. Some people like to put them in pies. Raspberry pie is really good. You could put them in yogurt. You could put them in a jam and you would make raspberry jam. The good thing about raspberries is that they are high in vitamins and they also have a lot of antioxidants. I think that might be a new word for you. Antioxidant is something that helps you fight cancer and heart disease. So it's always good to eat foods with lots of antioxidants. Not easy to say, antioxidants. Back in my classroom now, and I would love to talk about the next R food, which is ratatouille. Guess what? This comes from France. It comes from a region called Provence. At least that's the way we say it in English. And ratatouille is a dish made with stewed vegetables. When you stew something in English, you cook it in liquid over low heat for a long period of time. That way, the flavors all mix together. Great if you are a vegetarian. It's a hearty meal. Do you know that word?
hearty. If a meal is hearty, you are not going to be hungry after you eat it. Some of the things you might see in a ratatouille are tomatoes, eggplant, onions, bell peppers, zucchini, and herbs. Let's go back to that eggplant for a second. If you speak British English, you call it something else. But in the United States, this thing is an eggplant. One of the few purple foods that I know. Ratatouille can be served on its own. If you want to make the meal even heartier, serve it with some bread. But it can also be used as a filling for omelets or crepes. Crepes. I don't know exactly how to say it in French, maybe crepes, but they're like really thin pancakes. And of course, I need to mention the Disney film from 2007 called Ratatouille. I believe it's about a rat that's a really good chef, and I think he lives in Paris. All right, the next food in English that starts with R is ravioli. And yes, I'm in a different shirt. It's a different day. I'm finding it hard to find time to film this lesson. So here we go, ravioli. Guess what country it is from? It is from Italy. And ravioli is basically pasta, 2 layers of pasta, and then you put something in between it. Could be cheese, it could be vegetables, maybe some type of meat. And yes, ravioli first started in Italy about 600 years ago. And the reason it started was because when Italians had leftovers, do you know what leftovers are? Let's say you have a meal, but you can't finish it. There is just too much food. Whatever you have left over becomes a leftover. So 600 years ago, Italians would put those leftovers in between those 2 layers of pasta. Now, ravioli is popular all over the world. It can be served with sauces like tomato sauce or butter sauce or cream sauce, and it's often topped with grated cheese. Do you know what grated means? It means to make it really small, and you use a grater to grate vegetables, cheeses, but it is possible to have a dish of ravioli and then grate cheese on top of it. And today I do have on a red shirt. Red starts with R. The next few foods are going to start with the word red. And the first of those is one of my favorites, red velvet cake. Red velvet cake is the newest food we've talked about so far. It started in the early 1900s, and guess where? The United States. If something is going to be unhealthy, there's a good chance it comes from the United States. Well, this cake is red, and originally it was red because a vegetable called beets were added to the cake. That is what gave it its red color. Nowadays, people just use food coloring to make it red. It is definitely one of my favorite cakes, but it's not the cake part that I like best. It is the frosting, and it is a special frosting called cream cheese frosting. It doesn't sound healthy at all, but trust me, it tastes amazing. The next R food also starts with red, and those are red beans. These are beans that are kidney shaped. You will hear that with beans sometimes. Kidney, that is an organ in English. And red beans have an earthy flavor. Earthy, it means like it tastes like it comes from the ground. A lot of vegetables that are grown underground have an earthy flavor. These red beans have been grown for thousands of years, and they probably started in Central or South America. Still very popular today. When I went to Brazil, I did have some red beans, and guess what is served with these red beans a lot of the time? It is rice. Red beans and rice. Ooh, rice. starts with R too. Red beans and rice is also very popular in the state of Louisiana. That is where you will find Creole food. New Orleans is a city famous for its Creole food. Red cabbage is the next food that starts with R. The best way to show you cabbage in English is to put up a picture. This cabbage is special because it has purple red leaves and it's known for its crunchy texture. And just like radishes, it has a slightly peppery flavor. Cabbage is normally green, so this red cabbage is a little special. Today, cabbage is used in salad, something called coleslaw. It's basically when you mix cabbage with mayonnaise, and you might also find it in stews or stir fries. Red snapper. Now in English, that is a snap. But red snapper is a type of fish. The fish part, the meat part of red snapper is actually white. The name comes from the fish's skin. Unlike salmon, where the fish part, the part you eat of the salmon, is actually red. And what about red peppers? Yeah, peppers can come in all types of colors, but since we're doing our foods in English, let's talk about red peppers. We have the common bell pepper that can come in red, but you can also have some really spicy peppers that are red. A couple popular peppers in English that are red are the red Thai chili and the cayenne pepper. Please let me know in the comments, do you like spicy peppers? I'm a guy that likes a little spice in some of my foods, but I wouldn't say I was a real big spice guy. I like my food a little more mellow. Hey look, we are outside now and it is a beautiful day, and the next 3 R foods come from English teacher Mike. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of him, but he is a great English teacher. And he gave me 3 R foods that I want to teach you. One of them kind of scares me. One of them is one of my favorite foods and one I've never had. This first one, I'm really happy to teach you. It is Rocky Road ice cream.
Rocky Road?
I imagine you know what ice cream is in English. The flavor Rocky Road is chocolate ice cream, probably my favorite ice cream, but then you add some kind of nut, probably an almond and marshmallows. And that combination between the soft ice cream and the soft marshmallows, every so often you will get a crunchy almond. One of my favorite ice creams of all time. Again, if something is going to be unhealthy, it is probably going to be invented in the United States. It was invented during the Great Depression, which in English was a time in the United States where nobody had any money. This was right after World War I and right before World War II. And this ice cream was created to make people feel happier, even though they didn't have any money. And they probably didn't have a job. Thankfully, I wasn't born during the Great Depression, but I promise, every time I have Rocky Road ice cream, I do feel a little bit better. Unfortunately, my pants don't fit as well as they did before I had that bowl of ice cream. I've never had this next one that English teacher Mike sent to me, so I have some notes. This is called a rutabaga. Fun to say, rutabaga, but it is a cross between a cabbage and a turnip. And it is another one of those vegetables that is grown underground. So it does have an earthy flavor. It's round and its skin is purple and yellow. And according to these notes, there is a slightly nutty flavor that goes along with rutabaga. And the rutabaga was first grown in Russia and Scandinavia. When I think of Scandinavia, I think of countries like Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and Finland. Even though I think people in Scandinavia don't think Finland is part of Scandinavia. So what do I know? I am just an American. Here comes the one that I'm a little worried about teaching, and this one is roadkill. Okay, think of those two words that make up roadkill, road and kill. These are animals that are trying to cross the road, but they probably were hit by a car and they died. Most Americans will not eat roadkill, but maybe if an American lives out in the country, far away from the city, they might want to eat roadkill. Unfortunately, over the past couple weeks, as I have driven into school in the morning, I have seen these animals called possums dead on the side of the road. I did not see any people stopping to pick them up and bring them home and eat them, luckily. Where I live, however, there is sometimes a certain type of roadkill that is eaten, and that is a deer. A lot of people where I live love the taste of deer meat, and unfortunately, a lot of them do get hit by cars. When a deer is hit by a car and the meat is still good, sometimes people will get that meat and bring it home. It can literally feed a family for a couple weeks. But there are rules about taking home a dead deer that was hit by a car, and it does involve people we call game wardens. They are like the police of the woods. Last week, on my way to school, there was a moose in the neighborhood where my school is. Now, luckily, this moose was able to be saved. It did get stuck in my daughter's friend's backyard, but the game wardens were able to get the animal unstuck and move it to a mountain where it is going to be safe. Nobody ate that moose. It did not get hit by a car. It did not become roadkill. So many subscribers submitted foods that started with R. Of course, English teacher Mike, Sita, Michael, Lulu, Tanya, Boris, Natalia, Nasaran, Yasitha. We didn't get to everybody. We will have to do a part 2. If you are still looking for more English lessons with foods that start with a certain letter, right up there, or maybe down there, is an entire playlist. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.